Hey, welcome. This presentation is entitled The History of Native Math and Science, and today I'll be your guest lecturer. My name is Dr. Kent Blansett. I'm the Langston Hughes Associate Professor of Indigenous Studies and History at the University of Kansas. I come from 5 tribes, so I'm Cherokee Creek, Choctaw, Shawnee, and Potawatomi descendant. I come from 3 family lines, that of the Blanket, Panther, and of course the quintessential Indian name, Smith, is also in my family line. People are essentially mirroring what is in the heavens. They're mirroring it also on earth as well. What we would call that is what is above is equal to what is below. And you can see this X right here in the center of this presentation or this slide. And that X is essentially what Lakota peoples would use, at least as star knowledge. That would be their symbol for a star. What's really fascinating about it is the living structure for the Lakota peoples and a lot of other Northern Plains people and Southern Plains was the teepee or the lodge. And out of this, the teepee itself, or the inipi, was called a star. And part of this reasoning is that the fire would be lit in the center of that lodge. And if you were to look above, at least from the heavens, it would look like a star on earth in and of itself. And what I always have to tell people is that that heat is important because it's emblematic of pure energy, creation, right? Sun in and of itself gives us life. And at the center of that is at least heat, which is the center of our lodges. It's the center of our sweat lodges. It's the center of everything that creates our being and our wholeness and stability and balance within this universe. The poles, at least even of that lodge, relate to the laws for the Lakota people. And of course, the tops then relate to prayers that extend up into the heavens. So in other words, it connects what is above to what is below. In other words, mirroring the heavens and replicating it here on earth itself. Now, there was a really great book that I want to reference you to, and that was a book called Lakota Star Knowledge. And when I taught the history of Native math and science, what I would use is this parfleche design that you can see on the right. And this parfleche design is really fascinating because it tells a story of the origins for the Lakota people. And what we started doing is we started doing geometry with this parfleche design. And instead of at least using or starting with the proof and trying to theorize how to create it, we eventually say we start with the proof and then we use at least the designs to get to that point. So if this is the Lakota universe in this parfleche design, how do we get to that theorem? The way that we do that is that we begin dissecting it. And we can see if you dissect this parfleche design, there's 2 birds flying tip to tip together. So from the east and from the west. And these have to do with the thunder beings, Wakinyan, coming together in the beginnings of this, bringing east and west together. In the center of that, you then have the 4 directions. What is north, what is south, what is east, what is west. And then, of course, the center of that, which is your zenith, even your 5th direction and or element. If you look east and west on that, you also see these darker triangles on the left and right. Those are the example of the Black Hills themselves, or the Great Racetrack, even for the Lakota. And in that Great Racetrack that you can see here in the center of this design, we then have how each of these land formations, whether it be Matotipila or whether that be other formations in the Black Hills, how they relate to constellations in the sky. This constellation, which is 2 triangles tip to tip, which also replicates or looks like this slide of the star. That constellation represents tobacco. And this is how you get at least that pipe ceremony that is done in the heavens well before it is done here on this earth. It is the reason why the Black Hills are sacred to the Lakota people and continue to be an important component to the spirituality and the maintenance of the lifeways of the Lakota people, and why they still to this day have never ceded this territory to the United States and refuse to settle that. But this book was produced, it's called Lakota Star Knowledge, and it was produced by Centigleska Press. I always recommend, if you want to know more about star knowledge, that's a really great place to be able to start. Also, there's evidence too for Pawnee. Pawnee constructed earth lodges And much of those earth lodges related to at least a positionality or directionality that was central to the ceremonies as well as the lifeways for the Pawnee people, and the building and the framing of that architecture, as you can see in this diagram of the Earth Lodge itself. To the far left of that, or my right, would be a Pawnee star chart. And that star chart then has some of those similar astrological sequences of the Big Dipper, the Little Dipper, and then, of course, Pleiades. And Pleiades was important because Pleiades represented the heart of at least the lodge for even the Pawnee. So you can see even their lodges for the Pawnee in the Southern Plains replicated that of a star pattern or a link to the heavens in and of itself. Now, a lot of these star charts, too, were kept by the Chicago Field Museum. And a good friend of mine who is Pawnee, I once asked him about these medicine bundles, because oftentimes, as you can see, the star chart was wrapped around usually a meteorite or another important, at least, symbol or medicine bundle for the people. And of course, the Field Museum had a lot of these. And I asked, well, why don't the Pawnee get these returned? Why don't they get them repatriated back to the people? And he said, I asked my grandmother the same thing. And she said, it's hard because those are very dangerous objects as well. And the people that used to know how to use them are long gone. But the information and the knowledge is not. We're waiting for a time in which that knowledge comes back to us. And when that knowledge comes back to us, we will then ask for those back, because then we will know how to use them. So it's fascinating also to think about issues of repatriation around mathematics and science as well, moving into the future. Now, to close today, and I want to thank you for your attention in moving through this, and hopefully what I've done today for you is raise more questions than anything, and hopefully that'll pique your curiosity to begin exploring this topic even further. And in piquing that curiosity, I want to leave you with a grouping of readings. At least this is called the Star Knowledge that I referenced before. There's the Native Mathematics book by Michael P. Kloss. There's also journals like Ethnomathematics, a book by Greg Cahete, teaches at UNM, called Native Science. And then, of course, Williamson's Living Sky, Nabokov's Native American Architecture, and really recommend reading Vine Deloria's Red Earth, White Lies. There's a really great section in which he dismisses the Bering Strait theory. He showcases that we as Indigenous peoples have actually been here for hundreds of thousands of years, and that the origins of creation for all of humanity have just as much of a bearing of originating here as anywhere else on the planet. And it makes a very striking case for that, using Indigenous knowledge systems and science to postulate his argument all the way through. Another great book for the foundations and principles of this lecture was God is Red, another great book by one of our leading intellectuals, Vine Deloria Jr. And then, of course, for plant-based knowledge systems, a recent book that came out by Robin Kimmer, Braiding Sweetgrass. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this presentation. And if you have further questions, please feel free to look me up and email me at the University of Kansas. I would love to hear from you. And I hope that this will encourage you to work further in this field. Thank you very much for your time today.